Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode 27 of High Street Sports. My name is Chris. This is John Ross. We're here to bring you the weekly NFL and college football top 25 breakdown. John Ross, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's up, buddy? I'm doing good. Finally recovered from my trip to Tigerland this past week. My body finally caught up with my brain. Good time down there in Baton Rouge, though. Got to see Heisman hopeful Jaden Daniels in person. And, looking forward to getting into this week's football. Almost done with college football, unfortunately, but getting into the fun part of the season. So, let's talk about it.
It's unbelievable that we're already only 2 weeks remaining in the regular season. It is chicken shit Saturday in the SEC, but we will get to all of that here shortly. No newcomers in the top 25. Everybody who's in here has just kind of, bounced up and down a little bit. So again, no newcomers. We will get to all of that here in a second. But just to catch up on some current events here in college football, it was announced, this is Thursday, November 16th. It was announced about an hour and a half ago that Michigan has dropped its court date that was scheduled for tomorrow, Friday, November 17th, to see if they could get a court injunction to get Jim Harbaugh back on the field while they get that legal battle sorted. And it has seemed that Michigan has taken a complete 180. They've dropped everything that they had planned. Jim Harbaugh has accepted the 3-game suspension and will move forward with the conclusion of the regular season without him on the sidelines. An interesting development there, seeing as they were gung-ho on, battling that and battling the Big Ten and, trying to get Jim Harbaugh back on the field for the most important game of the season next week. Curious to see if you have any thoughts on any of that situation before we move on here into the schedule here.
No, we talked a little bit about it before the pod. Like, they know they got to play nice right now. I think it was maybe kind of a gift. They only suspended him 3 games, and that was the extent of that. So kind of take that slap on the wrist, keep it moving. There's still the NCAA investigation. I still don't think anything's going to happen for the end of this year. I kind of listened to Joel Klatt talk about it, and I agree with him. Even if I don't think the NCAA has actually came forward with a notice of allegations, and to my understanding, if that's the case, Michigan has 90 days to respond. 90 days exceeds the end of this season. So Michigan still is going to get off scot-free for this season, for this season at least. But so we'll have to see after the season what happens. But, yeah, slap on the wrist from the Big Ten. They're smart to not poke the bear anymore with that. But, yeah, not really too much other thoughts on that. Interested to see what the NCAA comes out with, if anything.
Yeah, the Big Ten portion of this is, effectively done with Harbaugh and the university accepting their punishment as of right now. It does kind of feel similar to what Ohio State tried to do with the Tattoo Gate scandal, whatever you want to call that, with, self-imposing a bowl ban and a reduction of scholarship. So we'll see what happens there. The NCAA investigation still is ongoing, but as you mentioned, Joel Klatt mentioned as well, things are far from over as far as the NCAA's portion of that goes. So just a current update there before we get into the top 25 schedule here, and we will do that right now, jumping into number 24 Tulane at Florida Atlantic. A noon game. Got any thoughts on that one?
Tulane has really played with fire these past few weeks and squeaked out another one last week against Tulsa. FAU lost to ECU last week, so that's pretty bad in and of itself. So give me the wave in this one.
Yeah, it's important win.
Go Pirates.
Important win number 2 for ECU as they try to grasp at some momentum going forward into next season, if there is any. Big win for the Pirates down there in Greenville. Moving on up here, number 23, Oklahoma State at Houston. Oklahoma State is a team that is stumbling in the last couple weeks, and it got worse last week. What do you think about the Pokes and the Cougs?
Who'd they lose to last week?
Let's see here.
I don't think they lost to
horrible.
no, they got blown.
They got blown off the field by UCF.
Yeah, that's 45-3. That's right.
Yeah,
because I remember getting back from the LSU game and just looking at the bottom line, and my eyes got that big when I saw that. Yeah,
I believe the score at halftime was something like 35-10 0 or maybe 35-3 at halftime. Yeah, they
I'm
got
surprised they stayed ranked.
yeah, they got eviscerated by
Yeah,
a
I guess that win
pretty
over
mediocre
Oklahoma.
UCF team. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that sucks for them because they were riding pretty high for that win against Oklahoma. Who on the road at Houston, too. They're -7 in this one. I'll take the Pokes to squeak one out for pride.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that's all you're playing for. After the way the last week turned out, and they might win, but I think a cover here on the road is in question. So we'll see how the Pokes respond there. Moving on up here, number 21 Kansas State at number 25 Kansas. This is a game that you don't want to lose this late in the season, a ranked matchup, albeit in the 20s. What do you think about Kansas State and Kansas?
Yeah, rivalry game here. Kansas State favored -9.5. I'm sure that has something to do with so Kansas already lost Jalen Daniels, their starting quarterback, and I think they've lost their second string quarterback. I think his last name's Beam now, so they're down to their third string quarterbacks. I think that's why the line jumped up so much. So yeah, give me the Wildcats in this one.
Yeah, I will also take the Wildcats in that one. Tough scene for Kansas to lose their star quarterback this late in the season, especially in a rivalry game. So we'll have to see how Kansas responds there. But I'll take the Cats in that one as well. Another team that had a lot taken from them. We've mentioned that. We talked about North Carolina a lot this season. Number 20, North Carolina at Clemson. Clemson, got a win last week against Georgia Tech. Pretty scrappy, pretty game Georgia Tech team. The Heels need a big win, and I don't know if you can call this one a big win given how Clemson's season's gone. But it's a chance for Carolina to go out and get another win heading into the bowl season here. What do you think about the Heels and Tigers?
Yeah, Clemson's favored at home -6.5. Carolina, hopefully they can ride the momentum. A big rivalry win last week in a double overtime against Duke. This one's going to be tough, though. I'm going to take Clemson in this one. I just think Carolina, it just seems like the kind of game Carolina will lose going on the road. But, hey, who knows? Clemson could. I mean, Clemson's not that great this year, so we'll see. But, yeah, I just give me Clemson against kind of don't really feel confident with the Heels on the road on this one.
Yeah, it's been an issue of defense, and I think that's been an issue that has followed the Heels for quite some time. They have not been able to figure that out. Gene Chizik was supposed to be the answer there to kind of turn that defense around, and it really has not come to fruition. But that's a game, if you're Mac Brown and the Heels, you got to have, and so that'll be a pressure-packed game on the road. It is a 3:30 game, so should be a pretty good environment down there in Death Valley as well. So we'll see how that one goes. Moving on up here, number 19, Notre Dame welcomes Sam Hartman's ex-lover here in Wake Forest into Notre Dame. Should be an interesting one. See how Sam Hartman does against his old team. What do you think about Notre Dame versus Wake?
Oh, yeah, the Sam Hartman Bowl. The Irish are favored -24.5. Yeah, I think they'll win this one. Not sure if they'll cover Wake Forest. I'm sure they'll put up a fight against their old quarterback, but I got the Irish in this one.
Yeah, I'll take the Irish too. A down year for Wake Forest, coming off of some pretty successful football with Sam Hartman the last couple of years. But I don't really think the Deacs have what it takes to go into Notre Dame and win this one. So I will take the Notre Dame Fighting Irish with you as well. Moving on up here, another Pac-12 matchup. Number 17 Arizona versus number 22 Utah. Arizona continues its ascend into the rankings here. Late in the season. What do you think about Arizona and Utah?
Yeah, they took care of Colorado last week. Utah, I believe, was Utah ranked last week?
Yes, they lost to. This is a prepared show. Let me find.
I know. I don't think that. I really don't think
they lost to Washington. Yes, they did. Washington 35.
That's right. Okay. That's right. Okay. Yeah. No,
we are
no shame
prepared.
No shame in losing to Washington.
No.
Yeah, just kind of a downward trend for the Utes these past few weeks. Kind of the opposite of Arizona. Arizona's only favored by 1 in this one, but yeah, I'm going to ride the hot hand in this one. Give me the Wildcats at home.
Yeah, I will too, and I think it's big that Arizona has this one at home, and I think the loss of Cam Rising is actually starting to rear its head for Utah, which is unfortunate because they started the season well and persevered well without him when it was kind of in limbo if he was going to come back or not. And then the wheels just kind of fell off. And, it's unfortunate there for Utah, but it's still a pretty good team, good defensive team, somebody that you can't count out. But I do like Arizona having the edge at home in this one. Moving on up here, number 15, LSU versus Georgia State. LSU, I have not seen a quarterback play the way that Jaden Daniels played last week in quite some time. I mean, the dude had –
I didn't even know he had 234 rushing yards until you texted me that.
It was unbelievable. I looked at the box score and I was like, holy moly. I mean, the dude was just on fire. What do you think about the Tigers? At this point in the season, obviously Georgia State won't give them much of a matchup this week, but what do you think about LSU?
I saw that defense in person last week, and I think anybody could give LSU. Yeah, Jaden once again had to bail his defense out last week, but he got it done on the ground and through the air. Tigers are favored minus 31.5 in this one. It's a night game again in Baton Rouge. So give me the Tigers in this one. I don't know if they'll cover because the Georgia State's like 6-4 or 6-3, something like that. So they will score against this defense, I'm sure. But while we're on the topic of Jaden Daniels, you texted me something, and the fine Ohio State fan you are, Marvin Harrison Jr. is very, very good. Best receiver in college football. Michael Penix Jr. is a great quarterback. He's having an unbelievable season. Bo Nix is a great quarterback, having a great season in his 89th year in college. Jaden Daniels should be the Heisman front runner. He should win the Heisman, and there's no argument you can make that can convince me otherwise. I have stats for you if you'll listen to me.
I will.
So, most plays over 20-plus yards in 2023. Number 76 plays of 20-plus yards, Jaden Daniels. The next closest to him is Michael Penix Jr. at 57. Next. Jaden Daniels leads the nation in total offense by 57 yards per game at 408.2 yards a game, which is more than 80 teams average this season. He's accounted for 38 touchdowns, which is more than 81 teams have scored. So, the top three Heisman quarterback candidates, Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't included in this. Kind of hard to compare receivers and quarterbacks. Right. Mm-hmm. But this is the top three Heisman candidate quarterbacks versus top 50 defenses this year. Bo Nix, 1 game, likely the Washington game. 248 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 8 yards rushing, and a touchdown. Michael Penix, 4 games against top 50 defenses. 1,263 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 25 rushing yards. Jaden Daniels, 5 games against top 50 defenses. 1,469 passing yards, 13 passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 486 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. That's pretty simple to me.
Numbers don't lie.
Lastly, you can't change the calculus on this. Jaden Daniels' adjusted completion rate on 20-plus yard passes is 71.4%. That's the best mark anyone has posted in the last 10 years. No QB has even crossed 70% in that span.
Wow. That's impressive. I mean, it truly is impressive. I think
it really makes it even worse because you sit here and wonder what would this season be if they had a competent defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I think, to me, what gets lost more than anything in this whole Heisman conversation, and it's really gotten lost the last however many years, is, when you truly sit back and watch all of these guys and you compare apples to apples as best you can, it's turned into a quarterback award, which is an argument for a different day. But when you truly compare apples to apples, what they've done and what they've been able to do, and I think when you look back and you see how Lamar Jackson won it and the record that Louisville had when he won it, which I think was 8-5 or
they had 3 losses. The same for RG3 when he won it.
Yeah, so I think you can't use that team record against somebody. And what I've what I've always kind of thought about when you really sit back and look at the Heisman and what that means, and which is an MVP trophy. When you look at the most valuable player, to me, what that means is if you take that player off of that team, what does that team look like without that player? And I think you could make the case that LSU would be a 500 team at best without Jaden Daniels. And just like you said, with the way the defense is played and how the offense has had to save LSU countless times this season, I don't know how you look at that game last week. And albeit Florida's not a great team, but you look at the way that he played against Florida, you look at the way that he played against Alabama, you look at the way he played
Missouri, Ole Miss.
Earlier on in the season against Missouri and Ole Miss.
Even against Florida State, I know they didn't have a good fourth quarter. He still had over 350 yards passing.
Yeah, and Ryan Day said it best in his press conference last week. And obviously, man, like I'm a huge Marvin Harrison Jr. fan. I do think that there's part of me that thinks that he is the best player in college football. But when you look at the totality of what Jaden Daniels has been able to do in both, with his arm and with his feet, he's dynamic. And he's as dynamic as every player in college football. And I do think that it's a three-man race at this point between Michael Penix Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jaden Daniels. And I think that's about where it starts and stops. That's where it should start and stop. And I think, out of those three, if I had to cast my vote, if I had a vote, I think right now, I love you, Marv, but I think I would have to go with Jaden Daniels.
Next is the odds-on favorite in some circles to win. Like, having a good season, but he's not like – you heard the stats of it. He's played one top 50 defense this year. Yeah, and no disrespect matters to Marvin Harrison Jr. either. He is the best wide receiver prospect we've seen in maybe 10 years, like since Calvin Johnson. But I could make the argument Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't even having the best wide receiver season in college football.
Yeah,
I could make the argument Malik Neighbors is having a better season statistically if we want to. I mean, he's. I think the only thing Marv's got him beat on is he's got 12 touchdowns. Malik has 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's fair, and I think Marv being hampered by an injury played a part in that too. But there's no doubt what you've seen on the field. So, I think Jaden Daniels has been outstanding, and he was outstanding last week. And it was just
he hit the Heisman pose in the game too. I don't know if you saw that.
I looked at those
off that long run.
I looked at those rush yards and I was like, "Holy cow!" I mean, that's unbelievable. So, hats off to Jaden Daniels, man. He's a baller.
Yep. What we got next? Oh, I think you skipped Iowa versus Illinois, but that one's going to be ugly. Iowa -3. Give me the Hawkeyes in a 13-10 final score game.
How did
Iowa sneak up to 16?
I don't know because they're not on my list here, which is
they were 22 last week and now they're 16.
Yeah, it's weird that game's not showing on my list, but yeah, whatever. Iowa's in shambles. They don't have an offensive coordinator. Whatever.
I don't think anybody could coordinate offense out of that.
Yeah, it's it's miserable. But I digress. They're probably tight end university, so they got that going for them. Moving on up here, we'll talk about number 14 Oklahoma at BYU. A game Oklahoma should win. They've got a pretty good quarterback there too. And I think I've seen a little bit of Heisman hype about him, but I think with the losses that they've had in the last couple of weeks, I think with the losses that they've had in the last couple of weeks and the way that they've looked, that's kind of out of the question there. Like I said, the three front runners are who they are. But what do you think about the Sooners and Cougars?
Oh, yeah, Oklahoma beat the hell out of West Virginia last week. They look good for the first time in a few weeks. And BYU, not at the season they hoped for. They're 5-5. Oklahoma's favored 24.5 in this. I think Sooners will win, but I don't think they'll cover that. That's a tough place to play at.
I agree, and that's
surprisingly.
again like it's not a team that's just gonna roll over. I mean, BYU and Utah both they're teams that you really wouldn't think of that jump off the page that have like huge home field advantages, but
And they need to, and Oklahoma needs to win if they want to keep their Big 12 championship hopes alive.
yeah. So there's a lot on the line for Oklahoma and a lot to spoil for BYU. So that should be a good one out west. Moving on up here, number 13, Ole Miss versus UL Monroe.
Reds.
Whatever. Yeah, Reds win that one.
They like we said last week, Lane Kiffin couldn't win the big game.
That's tough scenes.
They got
And
taken
another
behind the woodshed.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And another interesting thing that I saw out of Ole Miss on social media was Lane Kiffin's leaked conversation with one of their players who he dismissed after
Yeah.
working with him on a mental health break or whatever the case was, and then just I don't know what the situation is there, but not a great look for Lane Kiffin, who's already been in the center of controversy in the past. So it'd be interesting to see if anything comes of that. Moving on up here, number 12, Penn State versus Rutgers. Interesting to me that Penn State is still ranked in the top 15 after losing, 2 games against Ohio State and Michigan the way that they did. Really an offensive inept team. They just fired Mike Yursich as their offensive coordinator. So, it's a little bit in flux there in Happy Valley, but they face a Rutgers team who Greg Schiano is not afraid to trick play the shit out of anybody. So, it won't be a very easy game for Penn State. Do you have any thoughts on the Nittany Lions versus the Scarlet
I'd like
Knights?
to get a hold of his playbook. Flea flicker,
Yeah.
fumble risky, flea flicker, fumble flicker.
I couldn't believe I have never seen a fumble Rooski go for 60 fucking yards.
Yeah, the only time I've seen a fumble Rooski successfully score is in the movie The Longest Yard.
Yeah,
when Burt Reynolds at the 1 yard line. Rest in peace, Burt.
Yeah, that was quite the situation there. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
James Franklin better enjoy these last couple games. He's going to be coaching Penn State. I think they're going to fire him. I would.
Yeah, I think there may be a bit of a buyout situation that Penn State's not willing to deal with there. I actually talked to a Penn State fan today and asked him his thoughts.
Don't they have a massive alumni program?
Yeah, but
they can afford it.
Yeah, but I think when you're talking about Penn State, I think a lot of the top programs in the country kind of have the freedom to fire a coach and be able to pick somebody that'll be willing to step in. I think Penn State might be looking at it from a situation of like, if not James Franklin, then who? And
I don't know. Penn State's a prestigious college football program. I think he gets. Is Penn State the kind of program that only like brings in like people like who've gone there and stuff like that?
I don't think so, but I think in a situation where like they took a chance on Bill O'Brien and that one kind of backfired in their face like hard, I think they're kind of weary in some respects because James Franklin is an incredible recruiter. But there's things that he can't connect the dots, and it's been, I know it's frustrating for Penn State fans to have the talent that they've had in the past and not be able to knock off Ohio State and Michigan when it matters. And that noise is getting louder, especially with the way that they lost that game last week and just Michigan shoved the football down their throat.
They're gonna be stuck exactly in this spot until with him. And this isn't the Big Ten of the early 2000s where you still have your smash mouth like ground and pound games like last week, but Ohio State scores the past few years ran up the score on pretty much everybody in the Big Ten. You're going to have to score the ball if you want to beat teams like that. Michigan,
and you're going to have to throw the ball, and they can't throw the ball.
Yeah, Michigan, whether or not they have your signs or not, they've improved over the past year. Penn State they're going to be stuck behind those two until
Yeah, and especially, it might get a little bit easier for Penn State going forward with the the doing away of the divisions, so it won't have to come down always to their play against Ohio State and Michigan. So there is a little bit of a strategy thing to play with here. They may give them another year.
Oregon and Washington coming.
Yeah, It's going to heat
I
up.
didn't
It's
include
going to heat up
USC
quick.
because it's not hard to score against them.
No, it's not. And I think, one thing that those teams are going to have, those 4 teams are going to have to figure out is defense, and they're going to have to figure it out pretty quick.
Segueing because you brought up buyout. Jimbo Fisher, we saw got fired from A&M. Did you see the halftime thing where like some alumni, I don't know what it was, some alumni association or something gave a check for $120 million to the school athletic program? That is
No,
insane.
I did not.
You read the tea leaves, Jimbo. You think he was on the sideline just like?
I mean, you would think that with a program like Texas A&M, with the alumni that they have and the oil money that's out there and how much of it is out there, somebody was going to stroke a check for a pretty big number to get his ass out, especially with the way they've underachieved.
He may be fired, but
he's rich.
He will now make $7.27 million every year until 2031.
It's like Bobby Bonilla, but different.
It's like Coach O only got $17 million, and it's like he said, "What time you want me to leave, and what door do you want me to use?"
As long as there's enough zeros, I will gladly eat shit anywhere.
I'm going to make my prediction for A&M's next coach,
Dabo Johnny Manziel. Oh, you think so?
I think Dabo is going to want to come and try to cut his teeth in the SEC and see if he's for real or not.
Okay.
If not him, I say Lane Kiffin. I feel like the SEC is a carousel.
How many times would I have a hard time? Like, I would love to see Lane Kiffin go to another SEC school and see how bad he can mess that one up. I just have a hard time thinking that A&M, after the mediocrity under Kevin Sumlin and now Jimbo, I have a hard time thinking they'll take a chance on Lane. That would be very interesting, though, if Dabo decided to jump ship.
He'd fit right in down there.
Oh boy, would he!
He gives me a culty vibe. What'd you say?
Nothing.
What?
As if for more reasons than one. Moving on up here, number 10, Louisville at Miami. Louisville, jumping into the top 10, and they've got ACC championship implications in front of them, and they go to Miami in a game where, Louisville probably should win.
Miami's favorite,
which is interesting. Go ahead and give me your thoughts on that one. Okay,
favorite by a point. I mean, Miami gave Florida State a game last week, and you hope Louisville's not looking ahead to, because I'm. Did Louisville and Kentucky play each other the last week of the season for their rival?
I don't know.
I'm not sure if they play each other. I know they play each other every year in basketball, but I don't know if they do. Regardless, you wonder if Louisville, hopefully they're not feeding into their own hype and looking ahead. But yeah, give me the Cards in this one.
Yeah, I'll take the Cards as well. A lot riding on this game, and their ACC championship hopes could come crashing down if they lose this game. So a one that you got to have. Moving on up, number 9, Missouri versus Florida. As we mentioned, Eli Drinkowitz and Missouri are riding a hefty amount of momentum, and they face a Florida team who is reeling under 500 at 5-6 after last week's loss. A night game in Missouri should be a pretty good atmosphere there. What do you think about Missouri versus Florida?
Yeah, Missouri, like Georgia did to Ole Miss, they took Tennessee behind the woodshed last week and blew them off the field, keeping their big-time season going. They're really the closest team, in my opinion, to give Georgia – well, Auburn did, but they gave Georgia a run for their money 2 weeks ago. Questionable calls from the referee we've already talked about. But, yeah, Florida's season's spiraling. They're 5-5 now, I believe. Or, excuse me, 5-6.
Yeah, they're under 500. Yep.
And they got Florida State next week. So, yeah, Mizzou Tigers in this one.
Yeah, that's another interesting situation there in Florida, with why does his name escape me at the moment?
Napier.
Yeah, with Billy Napier only in his second year, Florida fans getting impatient down there, and they haven't really won much of anything since Urban Meyer left, and that's a fan base and a team that's hungry for a winner.
I think next year will be the money year for him. I'm not saying they're going to be good, but next year will be a good year to judge him on because that's when his first recruiting class is coming in.
Yeah, and I think there's rumored to be a defensive tackle that is leaning towards flipping to Ohio State. The kid's name escapes me, but I think they're losing a couple
I think, and they've
recruits.
got some good quarterback signed.
Yeah,
I think his name's DJ Legway or something like that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I know Graham Mertz is all right, but they haven't had they had Anthony Richardson last year, but yeah. Regardless, Missouri's going to beat the shit out of them.
yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see what happens there. Moving on up, number 8, Alabama versus Chattanooga. Rest in peace to the Mocs there. That's going to be a bloodbath in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. There's
Alabama
no
will
line.
win that one. Yeah, there shouldn't be. It would
Hey,
probably
Chattanooga's 7-3.
Yeah, well, they're about to be 7-4.
They're 7-3, and I think they're second in the SoCon. So,
behind Western Carolina, I believe.
Yeah, I think it feels like Bama flip flops every year and either plays Western or Chattanooga. Come to Chattanooga, you cowards.
Yeah, Nick, play a road game at Chattanooga. You coward. Yeah. Alabama's going to win this one by 1 million.
Yeah, they'll win by a lot. But Chattanooga will get a cool $1.5 million to go there.
I'd do it. Moving on up here, number 7, Texas at Iowa State. This is a night game and a big one. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Quinn Ewers played last week for the Horns, and they were able to get the win here. So, number 7, Texas at Iowa State. What do you think? What's up, Luna?
Yeah, Texas favored -7.5. I think they win. On the topic of Quinn Ewers, though, I think it was announced yesterday he's coming back next year. So that makes you wonder.
Which I think is probably what's fueling the Arch Manning transfer rumors.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Could go to. Wonder if Lane Kiffin could entice him to come to Ole Miss, where his dad played, or LSU.
Yeah, be interesting to see what he chooses to do there, and really see, if he does decide to transfer and move on and become a starter somewhere, how good he actually is. That would be, pretty interesting to see.
Yeah. Or he could pull the opposite of Quinn Ewers and go from Texas to Ohio State.
Now that would be something.
That pricked up your ears, didn't it?
I'm pretty good with the quarterback situation that we have right now. I think another year Kyle McCord will do him well, but we'll see what happens. Are we finished with that Texas Iowa State banter?
Yeah, Texas. Yeah, yep.
Okay. Excuse me. Jesus. Moving on up here, number 6 Oregon at Arizona State. As you mentioned, a lot of hype behind Bo Nix and the Ducks right now. What do you think about the Ducks and Arizona State?
Yeah, Oregon's favored -23.5. I think they're going to win this one. They seem to be on a mission to get that Pac-12 championship game for in all likelihood, a rematch with Washington. So, yeah, I think the Ducks will win this one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And the aforementioned number 5 Washington Huskies at number 11 Oregon State. Pretty big game for Washington, obviously, with all that's at stake here late in the season. What do you think about Washington and Oregon State?
Yeah, Oregon State's actually favored -2.5. Washington took care of business last week against Utah. This is probably their last toughest game in the regular season. They get Washington State in that rivalry game next week. The Beavs are going to be all hyped up to ruin Washington's perfect season, but I think Michael Penix Jr. and the Huskies will pull this one out in a close one at the end.
This is an interesting trend here that, they're giving home teams an edge as far as the numbers go. I wouldn't think that Oregon
State. Do you
see
some of the lines in the NFL?
Yeah, I wouldn't think that Oregon State would be favored in this one, but crazier things have happened. It's not like Oregon State's a bad football team by any means, but I think we've seen some worry. I think, and we talked about this earlier. It's kind of crazy how Washington hasn't jumped Florida State in these rankings, but I think the committee might be taking into account what their defense has done the last couple of weeks. Their defense really has kind of given up some points, and they've been in some closer games than I think people thought, and that might have a lot to do with the line this week as well, because DJ Uiagalelei has played pretty well this year, and Oregon State's not a bad football team like I mentioned earlier. So that line might be pretty accurate. It might be a pretty close game, just given what we've seen out of Washington the last couple of weeks. So it should be an exciting game. That's a night game on ABC. So it, should be a pretty raucous environment in Corvallis, or at least you hope so.
Yeah, I think if Washington wins this one, you can't keep them out of the top 4 anymore.
I would absolutely agree with that, 100%.
Because that would be Oregon State, Utah. I know USC is down, but I mean, still, they go on the road and get that win. Oregon, they went on the road to Arizona and won that. So yeah, I think.
Yeah. Moving on up here, game that we really don't need to talk about much. Number 4, Florida State versus North Alabama should not be an issue for the Seminoles there. Noles big in that one. Moving on up, yeah, poop game. Moving on up here, number 3, Michigan at Maryland. Maryland has kind of fallen off of a cliff after starting the season pretty hot. Talia Tagovailoa,
I don't think they've won a game since starting 5-0.
I think you're probably right there. Talia, started the season pretty well, as did the rest of Maryland, but have since fallen off a cliff after losing to Ohio State. Michigan is a team who is facing adversity and looks to win a game without their head coach for the second week in a row. Will Sharon Moore cry on the field after Michigan wins this game?
I don't know, but Michigan's going to win.
Yeah.
Getting ready for the big one next week.
As is another team getting ready for the big one next week. Ohio State welcomes Minnesota to town. PJ Fleck is going to row a pretty awful boat into Columbus. Ohio State shouldn't have much of an issue with that one. Things to watch out for with Ohio State, though, dealing with some injury on defense. Lathan Ransom will not play this week, nor will he play next week. So that's kind of a blow for Ohio State's back end of the defense. And Josh Proctor, expected to return for the Buckeye defense, will take the place of Lathan Ransom playing that safety position. And I think
anybody that's even slightly dinged up, I wouldn't play him this week.
Yeah, I think it's more of a knock the rust off for Proc, as he hasn't played the last 2 weeks. But I suspect that, as Ryan Day did in the second half of last week, get the starters out pretty quickly in the second half, if they even touch the field in the second half. So, again, those two teams, Michigan and Ohio State, just hoping to get through this week without any major injury and move on to the big one next week. Moving on up here, a ranked matchup, which I don't really believe should be a ranked matchup. I don't really think Tennessee has any business being in the top 25 at this point. Number 1, Georgia visits Knoxville in, what should be, a tough environment to play in. Kneeling gets loud and they get behind the balls. But what do you think about the Bulldogs versus the Volunteers?
They looked good again last week, just like they did against Kentucky. They showed why they were preseason number 1, and this is the end of this surprisingly gauntlet schedule they've had the past few weeks. Mm-hmm. Carson Beck looks good. Lad McConkey looks good. The defense looks good. And like you said, it's a hard place to play in Neyland, but I think the Dogs will pull away in the fourth quarter and win this one. Their favorite.
Yeah, I agree.
Team.
I agree with that. Like I said, I really don't agree with Tennessee being ranked at this point in the season. I don't really see much out of them that constitutes being a ranked team. They have underachieved, based on their own thought of what Bazooka Joe could have been. But he, turns out that he is what everybody thought he was, and that's just a big arm with nothing else much behind it. Luna's going to start zooming maybe here to conclude this. Top 25.
Crazy to me. Like I respect the hell out of Kirby Smart, man. He motivates those kids, man. Like just when you think they're not hungry anymore, they come out and have a performance like they did last week. So he's doing a hell of a job down there.
Yeah, and they've done enough to jump Ohio State in the college football playoff rankings to regain that number 1 spot. They're playing well, and there's not much that you can say about the 2-time defending national champions. So unless you have anything else to add here to the college football conversation, that will conclude the Week 12 conversation. I can't believe we've made it to this point. I can't believe it's already here. But it is what it is, and we'll move on. But we still have a lot of NFL football left. So let's talk about that. My picks were 8-6 last
Unfortunately,
week.
if you're a Panthers fan.
Well, it's taken a bit of a dark turn for the Browns as well. So
yeah,
that sucks. We'll get to that in a second.
but hey, we're having fun.
We are.
This is fun.
That's what this is about.
So much too much fun.
Whether you believe John Ross is actually having fun or not, we are. So my picks were 8-6 last week to bring me to an overall of 81-71 on the NFL season. How'd you do, and what is your overall record?
I was 500 last week, 7-7, and I am now 89-63. So you gained on me
a little bit, but I'll take it. As we mentioned,
I'm eager for you to hear some of the lines we have in this week's games.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear that. Before we get into that, the big news out of the NFL yesterday, Deshaun Watson has season-ending surgery on his throwing shoulder. He underwent an MRI on his ankle that he had hurt in the first half of the Ravens game last week to reveal a high ankle sprain. Also disclosed that he was dealing with some discomfort in his throwing shoulder. Underwent an MRI that revealed a broken bone in that shoulder. He is going to undergo season-ending shoulder surgery and be ready for the start of next year. Unfortunate hit again to the Browns, who are in the best start through 9 games since they came back in the league in 99. Just a tough situation for the Browns to be in. But they turn to Dorian Thompson-Robinson this week, and we'll see how that goes. So, still a lot on the table and a lot to play for in a crowded top to that AFC North division. So we'll see how that goes. But let's get into the slate here. Take it away, buddy.
First off, tonight, Thursday Night Football, we got good big game, Bengals at Ravens. Baltimore minus 3.5. Both teams coming off losses this week. Ravens to the aforementioned Browns. And then, you like that word? And then the Bengals lost to the upstart Houston Texans last week. This will be interesting. Rival divisional game, so kind of a rivalry game. Mm-hmm. Ravens came out. They said they plan to give Keaton Mitchell a bigger workload this week. Like, he ripped off a 40-yard touchdown early last week and then only got, I think, 2 or 3 more carries after that. And he showed, like I told you, if he's got 5 yards in front of him and another defender, he's going to beat that defender. He's got game-breaking speed. So good to see they're going to be using him more. Lamar's got to play better. He really had a bad second half in that game. Really couldn't put it away and let the Browns creep back into that one. To the credit of the Browns defense, obviously. And then the Bengals came down off their hot streak last week against the Texans. Joe had a pretty good game, but got outdueled by C.J. Stroud. But, yeah, give me the Ravens in this one. Being at home on prime time, I think they'll bounce back from that tough loss last week against the Browns.
I think there's been a lot of talk, since that game against the Browns last week for the Ravens. And I think there's a lot of talk that I have kind of agreed with. I think there's an issue with Lamar, and the issue with Lamar is late in the game. I think a lot of the knocks on him when he was looking for that big contract were if it comes down to it and the Ravens have to throw the ball to win the game. There's something there that he just I don't know what the issue is, but Lamar seems to be a little lost in the late game scenarios. So that's a weird thing that he just can't seem to shake and overcome. I think that might bite him in the butt going forward, and I think it has, and it might continue. I like the Bengals in this one, and I don't really know why I like the Bengals, because they're kind of up and down since Joe's gotten healthy. They lost the game last week, and but I think the Bengals will win this one tonight. I think it'll be a close game, but I think Joe will outduel Lamar late in that game.
All right, I don't hate it.
Well,
and next up, next we got the Chargers at the Packers. Chargers lost the Lions last week. Packers to the Steelers. So both teams coming off losses. Chargers favored -3. against my better judgment, I'm going to pick the Chargers. They'll find some way to screw that up for me, even against a team as bad as the Packers. But yeah, give me LA.
Let me see here. I think.
Didn't you pick the Chargers last week?
Yeah, I think I've picked the Chargers. 2 times in the last 3 weeks. In both times that I've picked them, they have betrayed me. I will not make that same mistake again. And I'm gonna. I picked the Packers, but the Packers won. I think the Packers played better than the final score represented against Pittsburgh last week. They just start so slow, and that's a problem. If the Packers start quicker than they did last week, I think they can play well enough to beat the Chargers. However, what I think is going to hurt the Packers ultimately is Keenan Allen, and I think Keenan will do
he's
enough.
Playing like a man possessed.
Yeah, I think Keenan will. He's the NFL's reception leader, but he is not the receiving yards leader. But I think, being a guy that catches as many balls as he does and being as big a part of that offense as he is, I think Keenan will help propel the Chargers to a win there. So I'm going to pick the Chargers against my better judgment. But here we are.
And next we got AFC North rivalry games, Steelers at Browns, like we talked about. Sean out for the season. They're going to turn to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Steelers coming off that win against Packers. Browns are actually favored, only -1 though, so basically a pick 'em. Mm-hmm. Give me the Browns in that defense. I think they'll rally around people kind of writing them off now. Deshaun's out. They know how they got to win games. They win games with their defense. Hell, seems like they were doing that even when Deshaun was in there. So, yeah, give me the Brownies in the dog pound.
Yeah, I like the Browns in this one, and it's,
And they don't like the Steelers, so.
They don't like the Steelers. This game is in Cleveland. I think they realized that week 2 they basically handed the Steelers a victory in Pittsburgh. Deshaun threw a pick 6 on the first play of the game that was tipped in. It was just an unfortunate, should have been caught, but bounced off the receiver's hands into the Steelers.
I forgot about that game. There was
so much it was
tomfoolery in that game.
That game was one of the strangest games I've ever seen. But I think the Browns defense has this one circled in a game where they know they let one get away. The Browns as a whole know they let one get away in week 2. And, I think there's something to be said about how I think TJ Watt had 2 sacks in that game, if I'm not mistaken. But DeJuan Jones blocked him and did a pretty damn good job of containing him. You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him, as the cliche goes. But I do like Cleveland at home. I like Cleveland's defense at home. I do not like Pittsburgh's offense. So I think that, Cleveland has a chance to win this game. And really, if my prediction comes true with Cincy winning tonight, really put the Browns in the driver's seat to win that division. They would have the tiebreaker over Baltimore in that situation and Pittsburgh. So, I would love selfishly for the Browns to win that game. And I think they can win that game. So I'll pick the Browns with you in that.
They still have to play this is the first time they played the Steelers. No, the second time. They still have to play the other 3 teams again, don't they?
I think this is they might have to play the Ravens one more time, but this will do it for the Steelers, and then they'd have to play the Bengals one more time.
I got you. So we're both on the Browns.
That's a huge game for the AFC North, like a massive game for the AFC North, because whoever wins that game, depending on the outcome of tonight, that this weekend is a big AFC North weekend, so a lot to look out for there.
Next up, we got the Cardinals at the Texans. Texans beat the Bengals. Cardinals, in Kyler Murray's return, beat the who did they play? I just had it. The Falcons. Yeah, they beat the Falcons. Yep. I knew it was a bird. Texans, man, what can you say? CJ Stroud is balling right now. Someone mentioned it. He needs to be in the MVP conversation, not just Offensive Rookie of the Year, and that's not outlandish by any means necessary. He's second in the league in passing yards. Shout out to DeMeco Ryans, their new head coach.
Absolutely.
He's doing a phenomenal job there. Everyone said he was just a defensive guy, but he's put the guys around him, and it's insane to me, especially as a Panthers fan, just watching how open CJ's guys are. There's a way, and apparently the fine folks on Mint Street haven't grasped this yet. There's a way to scheme guys open, and the Texans are doing it right now. And CJ's making some incredible plays too. So yeah, give me the Texans in this one. I know every time I've picked them this year, they've lost. So if they do lose, I won't pick them again the rest of the year.
I'm going to take the Texans as well, and I'm going to take them for that reason. As you mentioned, they are doing it with Tank Dell, who has had a great season. I mean, he's shown that he can be a playmaker. Noah Brown, I would like to take a second to really give Noah Brown his flowers here. He was a guy that was kind of buried in the receiver room in Dallas, and has really just come out here and shown his true ability. He's been a weapon for CJ Stroud, and for what it's worth, that Buckeye connection can be strong, even if they didn't play together there. But it's unbelievable what they've been able to do with the lack of weapons, or those big name star power guys for the Texans. And as you mentioned, man, I think the longer this season goes and the more success that the Texans have, that just speaks to what the job that D'Amico Ryans has done. And I think if they end up in a situation where they're fringe playoff, or if they make the playoffs, I think there's really only one choice at that point for coach of the year. And D'Amico Ryans is making his case. So I'll take the Texans as well. And I'm with you. I think I picked the Texans probably 4 or 5 times this year. I think I've only been right on 2 of them. So if I lose out on this one, I'll be right there with you and not pick them again.
Next up, AFC South matchup, Titans at Jaguars. Jags got blown out on their own field last week against the Niners. And the Titans, I don't think they lost to the Buccaneers last week. That's what I thought. Give me Jacksonville at home. They're -7. I'm going to assume they're pretty pissed off after what happened on their home field last week, albeit to a good team. But yeah, give me Jacksonville against a mediocre Titans team.
Yeah, I think, not to bring up an adage from episodes past, but I think this comes down to which quarterback do you trust more, and I'll take Trevor Lawrence over Will Levis. So I will take the Jags as well.
Next up, we got the Raiders at the Dolphins. Dolphins were off last week. Raiders riding some momentum right now. Beat the Jets last week. Antonio Pierce is 2-0 as a head coach right now. The guys are rallying around him, winning for him. Miami is favored, however, -13.5. And yeah, I think that might hold true. Give me the Dolphins that offense is going to put on a show, I think.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the Dolphins, with their bye week last week, they lost the last time they played, right? They lost.
Yeah, they lost to the Chiefs in Frankfurt.
Chiefs. I mean, they've had 2 weeks to think about that, and get back to the drawing board. And as much of a weirdo as Mike McDaniels is,
I bet Tua has practiced that pass that he completely blundered to what that receiver a million times since then.
Yeah, and if you look on the other side of the field, Vegas has a little bit of momentum following the firing of Josh McDaniels, and it is just, isn't it crazy what happens when you get arguably the best receiver in football the ball?
Well,
I mean, I don't.
You need to get it to him more. He's on my fantasy team.
Well, yeah. So
I
mean, it's just
enough, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's been a rough start to their season and a rough start to the season for Devontae, but
it's just been crazy hearing all the reports about how different the feeling is now that McDaniels is gone.
If I'm an NFL team, there's no chance that I even look his direction if I'm in a head coaching.
Yeah, he'll go wherever Belichick goes.
Yeah, they'll recycle him back.
Belichick ain't surviving in New England.
Yeah, well, I said before, I think that'd be foolish of New England to give him the door, seeing as I think Bill's earned that right to kind of walk away from that team when he chooses that he would like to. But
yeah,
I mean, but there's no telling. I mean, I did see a stat the other day of the Patriots record with Tom Brady versus without, and I was kind of one of those guys that was more of a believer that was more Bill Belichick than it was Tom Brady, but the numbers don't lie. His record's not very good without Tom. So interesting to see what happens there. But I will pick the Dolphins in this one, having 2 weeks to think about a loss.
Next up, we got the Cowboys at the Panthers. Dallas -10.5. The Panthers suck. This one's going to be ugly. and the Cowboys fans are going to take over Bank of America Stadium. Unfortunately, I will not be watching this game. I will not be watching the Panthers game the rest of the season. I told you the other night when they lost the Bears, they need to sit Bryce. There's especially this week, Micah Parsons is going to put him in the earth. There's no reason to keep him out there, ruin his confidence. I mean, I don't know if you can ruin the dude's confidence. He's calm, cool, and collected all the time, but this team is just an absolute shit show. Frank Reich saying he's going to take back over play calling. There's no direction, and that all starts at the very top in that owner's box. But we've talked about that. Cowboys big in this one.
Yeah, I just, I don't really think there's much more to add or any reason to pile on of what we've already said about the Panthers.
And don't have a first-round pick next year.
Unfortunate scenes, and you would think that
dudes are tanking and they forgot they don't have a first.
Yeah, it's we'll get into a conversation, later in the season and into the offseason what the Panthers should do going forward, and with that roster to kind of make it so that they have some kind of draft capital. I mean, they got to regain it somehow. But
number one priority is I know people say, well, the quarterback isn't a fit for the coach's system. No, the coach isn't a fit for the quarterback. It's the most important position in football. In the NFL, in college, okay, you build the coach is the head man. Mm-hmm. In the NFL, you build around your quarterback.
Yeah.
And I hope David Tepper knows that.
Well, it doesn't seem like he does. But I will piggyback there with you, and I'll pick the Cowboys.
Yeah, you'd be an idiot not to. I'd tell you to go get your brain checked if you did. Next, NFC North matchup, Bears at Lions. Justin Fields, I think, is going to be back this week. Mm-hmm. It's not going to matter. Detroit -7. Detroit's going to win. And they're going to win big.
Yeah, the Bears stink. Unfortunate, that Justin Fields is in that position with a delusional fan base that seems to think that Caleb Williams is going to come and solve all their issues. He is not going to. But
I wouldn't put it past the Bears to draft, if they get the number 1 and number 2 pick, draft Caleb Williams and then Drake May.
I wouldn't put it past them either. That's yeah. But
they're gonna get the number 1 pick from the Panthers, it looks like. So take the quarterback, and then I'd tank the rest of the year so I can get Marv.
Yep. I will take MCDC and the Lions in that one.
Next NFC matchup, the Giants at the Commanders. Commanders coming off a loss to the Seahawks. Giants coming off a big loss to the Cowboys in Jerry World. Washington's favored -9. I don't know if you know this, but Sam Howell leads the league in passing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What a year.
Yep.
I think it's Sam Howell, C.J. Stroud, maybe Jared Goff. Patrick Mahomes are a bunch of household names aren't in the top 5.
Yeah.
So very weird year in the NFL.
Yeah.
Losing Aaron Rodgers doesn't help.
Yeah.
Hell, he may be back soon.
Yeah, with his voodoo magic.
Yeah, with his bionic leg. But yeah, regardless in this one, the Giants and Joey Bag of Donuts at quarterback. Give me the Commanders -9 at home.
Yeah, I'll take the Commanders as well. I do not think they cover, but I think they will win this game.
Next up, our third double-digit line this week, Bucks at 49ers. San Francisco -11.5. I'm shocked it's that high. Buccaneers are a scrappy team. Baker's having a pretty good year. Niners got back to their old ways last week against Jags, beating them 34-3. Christian McCaffrey did not score, broke his 17-game touchdown streak. But yeah, being back at home this week, I think the Niners are going to win. I don't think they'll cover that -11.5 though. That's a lot of points in the NFL.
Yeah, I will take the Niners as well. I think, one of the biggest things for the Niners is the addition of Chase Young, and Chase Young and Nick Bosa met at the quarterback twice last week.
Pick your poison.
Yeah, and it's that's terrifying that they have both of them on the same defensive
line. And Eric
line.
Armstead in the middle.
It's
and then Fred Warner at the second level.
I mean, I hate this term. I hate it with everything inside of me. The embarrassment of riches term. For whatever reason, that just makes my skin crawl. But it is truly an embarrassment of riches for that
Yeah.
defense in San Fran. So,
Yeah, good
give me the
showing
Niners.
for Steve Wilkes last week too, defensive coordinator, the man who should be the head coach of the Panthers, but he's not. Uh, People were talking down on him after the offense had some pretty bad weeks and trying to make it a defensive thing. So good for Steve Wilkes.
Yeah,
moving him down to the field instead of the press box.
mm-hmm.
So yeah,
I think there's something to be said for that. By the way, I've always kind of thought that, if you're on the field and you're able to kind of feel the energy of the game on the sideline, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, part of it's just I don't know. It's weird to me.
Yeah,
It's weird that like you would like saying, well, this will change something. I mean, obviously it must have changed something. It's just weird that they would try to make that a defensive thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
But next up, AFC East matchup: Jets at Bills. Jets are in a downward spiral. The locker room seems completely out on Zach Wilson at this point, and with no coming back. I know there was a little bit of hope beginning of the year when he had that solid performance. I think it was against the Eagles, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And the Bills are in a downward spiral of their own. They're 500. They just fired their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. They're favored by 7 in this one. So give me the Bills at home, but I wouldn't be shocked if they lost. They'd love to play down to their competition.
It's just an interesting situation there with they fired Ken Dorsey and it's just the season hasn't gone the way that the Bills want it to. Trayvon Diggs is tweeting 14 got to get out of there, man, and it's just a mess in Buffalo too. So I think I don't see the Jets having any business in this game other than their defense holding them in it. But there's something that is off, with the Bills.
And Josh Allen.
Well, yeah, in that
the Jay Cutler intrusive thoughts are getting to him.
Oh boy,
have you seen those tweets?
Yes, I have. But I think the biggest thing about Josh Allen and the Bills is, you can try to change him all you want, but his legs are a big part of the way he plays the game. And if you take that away from him, then you're kind of taking, a quarter of his game away. And, his ability to run the football is what makes him a threat. And, I think they've got to let him do a little bit more of that and just tell him to not go heads up with the linebacker. Just slide, dude. That's all it takes. And, you don't have to take those big hits. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. We all know how good you are, Josh. So just play your game and you'll be fine. But as you mentioned, it's even worse in the Jets locker room. Zach Wilson stinks, and he'll continue to stink. I will take the Bills in this one as well.
Next, another divisional matchup, NFC West, Seahawks at Rams. Seahawks coming off the win against the Commanders. The Rams were off last week. Seattle only favored by 1, or Seattle favored by 1 on the road. Give me the Seahawks in this one. I don't know if I think Matthew Stafford's questionable this week, so he should be back, but I just like the Seahawks going on the road and keeping it rolling. I know they won last week. They lost to – oh, that's right. They got blown out by the Ravens the week before.
Yeah.
Yep. I like them to keep it rolling this week, kind of extend their lead in that NFC West division. Or not extend, try to keep pace with the Niners.
Yeah, I mean, I like what they've been able to do, and I like the way that they've found new ways to get Jackson Smith and Jigba involved in the offense, and the way that they keep kind of developing. So I will take the Hawks in that one as well.
And next up, Sunday Night Football, Vikings at Broncos. Vikings, little resurgence under Josh Dobbs now. I believe the Vikings are 6-4. I'm pretty sure, and right up there. Right behind the Lions in that NFC North. Broncos going on a little bit of a run themselves. They're up to 4-5. Beat the Bills last week in prime time. They're favored in this one, -2.5. Give me Denver. I'm going to finally pick them. I do think Russ is playing good the past few weeks.
Now there is something to be said if you kind of pay attention to the sidelines. Russ and Sean Payton are much more engaged than they were earlier on in the season. They had some massive growing pains. Russell Wilson, I still think kind of stinks, but there's no doubt that they're playing better. They took advantage of a massive error by the Bills last week in what can only be described as like a high school football type of error. You can't have that happen. And I think if he made the kick, it wouldn't have mattered. I don't think anybody would have said anything about it. But the fact that Will Lutz missed and then got moved up and then had another opportunity to hit it just kind of pours salt in the wound.
Yeah.
But the Josh Dobbs thing is it's an unbelievable story. And the fact that they had to stand on the sideline and learn the cadence together and just basically play backyard football to win that game was nuts.
Didn't Cleveland release him or cut him to start the season, didn't they?
They traded him to Arizona. He was on the roster
right.
towards the end of training camp, and they traded him to Arizona.
Nice to have that one back right about now.
Yeah, but and you can think that, but like nobody nobody could have forecasted Josh Dobbs doing what he's doing. But he is a rocket scientist, so do that with what you will. Where'd you say this game was?
It's in Denver.
In Denver. Am I really going to pick the Broncos? Am I really going to do this?
Let's do it.
I'll do it at home in a situation where Russ is kind of starting to look like the old Russ.
If they lose, let's both have a gentleman's agreement. We will never pick them again.
All right. I'll pick the Broncos.
And then lastly, the game of the week on Monday night, Super Bowl rematch, Eagles at Chiefs. Chiefs were off last week. Eagles, I believe, were off too. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so. I don't see them on my list here.
Yeah, I thought they were. Both teams off last week, so both teams coming in fresh. Kansas, it's in KC. They're favored -2.5. Like we talked about, I didn't like the way Kansas City had been playing. Then they beat the Dolphins a couple weeks ago. Almost let the Dolphins win at their end if it wasn't for Tua's mishap. But yeah, still don't like the way the Chiefs are playing. I like the way the Eagles are playing. Give me Philly on the road, getting a payback for the Super Bowl loss last year and continuing their march to get back there. And
I think
like a genius.
I think what this really boils down to is, how the Chiefs use this off week to kind of, step back a little bit and see if they can get back to the drawing board with the offense and see if they can make some mid-season adjustments here. I think the bye week came at a pretty good time for Kansas City, and I also think it came at a pretty good time for Philly as well.
And Travis Kelce.
Right, who is on fire. So I think, you segued me into what I think the key is for this game, and it is Taylor Swift going to be in the building? Monday Night Football, Super Bowl rematch.
Is this
they're publicly kissing.
Is this the moment? I think I've mentioned on here before, she is an Eagles fan. Is this the moment the sabotage happens? Is Travis Kelce going to end up doubtful or something like that for the –
I think we will officially figure out if this is just a PR stunt or not this week.
Oh, dude, what if she shows up in full Eagles garb in a Travis Kelce jersey?
It would be one of the most incredible storylines to ever happen in the NFL, hands down.
And then the Eagles just blasted on the big screen when Travis Kelce's wide open, about to catch the ball. And he's just like,
oh, man. But no, in all seriousness, I think, a bye week will do teams well. And, I think this is a bit of an inflection point for both of these teams, but I think more so Kansas City than anybody. Can they get back to, the Kansas City that we're used to seeing? Can they, figure out a way for for the receivers and the other areas to step up that are not named Travis Kelce, and they will need that going forward. And they're going to need their defense to step up, and really it's an all hands on deck effort for Kansas City to get back to the form that we've been used to the last couple of years. So I think this is a pretty important game for both teams, but I think it's more important for Kansas City. And I think, Kansas City will understand that. And it's prime time. It's Pat Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts. It's the Kelce brothers against one another. It's a huge game. And, I'm going to go against you here, and I'm going to pick Kansas City, the Swifties, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes.
Swelsey.
Yes.
Trailer Swelsey.
Trailer is my favorite.
But yeah, that's it for this week's NFL slate. Like I said, 3 double-digit lines. So some real doozies this week.
Yeah, some real barn burners. I've said it before. I'll say it again, and I will definitely scream it from the mountaintops if the Broncos screw me. We'll see.
I'm going to make a prediction right here and now. I'm going undefeated in my picks this week. I feel good about all of them.
I feel good about all of them too, but I'm a realist.
Nope.
We'll see what happens.
I'm going undefeated.
All right. Well, from your mouth to God's ears, sir.
I'm a realistic optimist.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, good on you, sir.
And I am optimistic. The Panthers absolutely suck. I'm done. You can take us home.
As I mentioned on the Buckeye Show yesterday, we are inching closer and closer to 100 subs. We're making it, making progress every week. We appreciate you guys for coming back and hanging out with us and talking
All
ball.
we want for Christmas is 100 subs.
All we want for Christmas is 100 subs. Let's see if we can get it there. If we can get it there, we'll do a giveaway of some sort. I've got some things in the works here that I'm working on behind the scenes, getting some things going here. But we'll do
Panthers fandom.
to the highest bidder, and that could be for $1. So continue to do what you guys have been doing. Share the pod, like, comment, subscribe. All the interaction, really matters and helps us out on YouTube. So we would appreciate it if you guys can continue doing that. I don't really want to have to have John Ross threaten a call to action here, but I will if I need to. So as always, guys, thank you guys so much for coming back and hanging out with us while we talk ball. This has been an amazing ride to this point. We're having fun. College football season is winding down and getting to the good stuff, but the NFL season is right at the halfway point. So we've still got a lot more football for you guys coming soon. Guys, thank you once again. Thank you for being here. For John Ross, my name is Chris. This has been High Street Sports. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.